So welcome everybody. I didn't hear anything. Welcome everybody. Good afternoon and welcome in this beautiful setting here. Do you agree with me? It's beautiful, tropical, and it's welcoming actually. So, and also for you there out there. So stay tuned because you're gonna we have a lot of content for you talking about the data centers, the role of the data centers in the region, in the beautiful region of Africa, and what's going on there. What are the trends? What are the challenges? Because we have a few, but also we're going to talk about what are the solutions. And with this, I would like to give quickly first the mic to Neil for an introduction round to see who are we talking to and who are we talking with and who are we listening to. So Neil, please.
Thanks very much, Eric. My name is Neil Norkia. I'm the Group Director for Wingu.Africa for Sales and Marketing.
Thank you. Hunaid?
Thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. I'm Hunaid Hussein Ali, the Country Director for Wingu Tanzania.
Thank you so much. Dylan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Cover from Afrix Telecom.
Thank you. Mainza.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Mainza Mono. I'm the Strategic Development Lead for Raxio Data Centers.
All right. And last but not least, Kevin.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin. I lead the carrier business team in Nairobi for China Mobile International.
Thank you so much and welcome, gentlemen. And welcome to the audience. So I hope you're having a fun time here, and we're gonna want to take it away. And the session is sponsored by Wingu, so thank you very much for that. And maybe we want to know first, what are these guys up to actually, and what are they doing, and how are they serving the telco community and the complete community around Africa? So let us.
The Wingu Group has its origins going back a decade now. We started with the very successful carrier-neutral data center in Djibouti, which has transformed really the telecommunications activity in that country. And we're pleased that we are now able to expand into other East African countries. We are moving into Ethiopia. We have a small facility in Somaliland, and we're extremely proud and pleased that here in Tanzania, we'll have the country's first carrier-neutral data center located in Dar es Salaam.
The difference between us and many other data center providers is two fundamental technological differences. One is that we're a Tier 3 certified data center. It means that your uptime is at least 99.985%. So we're the only data center here at this present time that is certified to such a high level and can provide such level of excellence.
At Wingu Data Center, we will be providing co-location services to our customers. The customers will be able to select from half rack space to as many number of racks that they will require. As an open access and carrier neutral data center, we would welcome all the mobile network operators, subsea cable operators, and internet service providers to come and provide services in our Meet Me room. With that said, our customers will be able to access international and national backhaul services through the data ecosystem. We also provide a virtual POP services for customers who wish to expand their network into the region. We want to assure our customers that they will be able to get highly secured, fully reliable, and redundant services into our data center.
Wingu's data center provides the assurance that people are looking for, and businesses, that their data is always available and safe and secure. We expect that there is an opportunity for us to add additional facilities over the coming years, and we would certainly look to do that as the market demand requires.
Wow, I think we need to clap for that. Amazing achievement, guys. So Neil, what's next? Because it's, take us away.
I'll tell you what, let me take you through a quick presentation, although I must say that I think those guys did most of the job for me. So I'll take you through this quickly. Let's go through it. And if there are any questions, obviously, please let me know. As you've heard, Wingu.Africa started in Djibouti 10 years ago. Seems to be 10 years ago with Djibouti Data Center. As I said, we've been there for 10 years now. We are happy to say that we have 100% uptime in 10 years in Djibouti. We're very proud of that fact. We have a lot of the people in this room and out there as well as our customers who've trusted us there. We have a reputation for being a reliable data center services provider. Based on that success, we are building a second carrier neutral data center in Djibouti. It will be coupled with a carrier neutral cable landing station. That is a massive step forward, in our opinion, for Djibouti. But we're expanding further as well. We've got fairly aggressive expansion plans. Next, it will be Berbera in Somaliland, where again, we have a cable landing station. The Peace cable will be landing there. So we're very happy with that. That will become, in our opinion, a gateway for Ethiopia, which is a massive market in East Africa. We also have that country, Ethiopia's first carrier neutral data center, which is launched. We're happy to say phase 1 is operational, and we have our first customers installed there. So we're very happy with that. Lastly, Dar es Salaam, as you saw in the video, really nice facility. We expect that to be live by the end of this month. And we are already speaking to all of the players here in Tanzania to ensure that we strengthen the ecosystem here as much as possible. So that is, if you have a look at that expansion, that's around about 1,000% increase in available power and infrastructure in just over 3 years. So we're very bullish about the region, but we're not the only ones. I had a look at a couple of studies that are done, and there was a particular study that caught my eye, which is a study on the African ICT ecosystem, which was done earlier this year by Accenture. And some of the information or some of the comments from there really caught my eye. For example, Africa is the last frontier for global expansion. The other one is Africa gives companies that missed out on the meteoric growth of India and China one final opportunity to secure a foothold in a large and fast growing marketplace. So as you can see, it's not only Wingu that's bullish about this area. There are a lot of people out there who feel that this is a real opportunity for growth. Some of the key points that came out of that study, firstly, is the fact that the population in Africa not only is very young, but we expect the sub-Saharan population to double by 2050. And that is a massive driver towards growth, obviously. It will surpass China and India by 2050 in terms of people living in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's massive growth there, but not only population. In terms of the ICT ecosystem, we're expecting massive IGDP growth, which is internet-driven GDP growth. So we're expecting by 2050, South Africa and Nigeria are expected to have 6% of their GDP will be IGDP. That is on the same levels as the US right now. So the growth is there. Other countries will follow, but those are the standout two. By 2025, IGDP for the region is expected to contribute $180 billion. So there's enough growth there. 522 million internet users right now in Africa, and we're expecting 11% growth by the end of the decade. So the growth is there, and it's looking really, really positive. I'm sure everybody's seen this cable map before. I don't want to give away my age here, but I remember this sort of diagram when it was SAT3, EASY, and CCOM. And as you can see, a huge amount of development has taken place over that time. I'm not going to say the number of years because it kind of gives it away, but but as you can see, it continues to grow. We've got Equiano coming, 2Africa's coming, Peace is coming. It's landed already in some places. And that just those three bring around 380 terabits of capacity to the African market. We're not even talking CMIWI 6. We're not even talking Blue Raman, which are still to come. So again, a lot of development and a lot of people feeling bullish about this market. Trends within the co-location space, basically what we're seeing now is a lot of the larger corporates, a lot of the OTTs, a lot of the content guys, and obviously some of the network guys are extending the edge of their network onto African soil. We've seen it before. Big people or big companies coming into the likes of South Africa, Nigeria, and that will continue to move. Obviously, I want to believe that East Africa is the next one to get it. So we're seeing edge networks move in, and we're seeing these corporates move away from the build model in favor of a lease model. Now, I believe for our market, distance does have something to do with that. But according to coresight.com, generally the 7 reasons for them moving away from the build and own model to the lease is control, scalability, finance. Obviously, you don't want to use your CapEx. You rather go to an OpEx model. Economies of scale. You build a large data center, you're using 10%. You're paying for the whole data center. So there's a lot of things that come into it. Obviously, expertise. You don't have to have trained staff everywhere. It's supplied. Time to market. It's as simple as placing your next order. And then obviously end of life responsibility when everything comes to a close. So again, we're seeing a huge move towards co-location, and it looks good. As I said, we've already increased by a huge percentage. We're seeing a lot of other players in the market do the same. More data centers going into Ethiopia, a 22 megawatt facility in Kenya. So there's a lot going on in the region from that point, but also not only in the DC space, we're also seeing a lot of good movement in other areas. Legal and regulatory frameworks are improving all the time to allow for licensing, to allow for investment. The operators in country are continually extending their fiber networks, whether that be backhaul, metro, or fiber to the building. So that is also contributing to this great growth that we're seeing. And like I say, very, very positive. So I think in summary, I'd just like to say that East Africa is definitely open for business. There's a huge amount of subsea capacity that's being delivered. The regulatory frameworks are improving all the time. The much needed terrestrial infrastructure is increasing, and obviously the DC capacity is there. So for East Africa, now is the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So there was a quick and snappy overview of the business, but I think that everything was there and everything is there. And I think I tend to agree. Now is the time. Now is the time. Are there any questions for Neil? Neil, again, you nailed it again. There you go. You know, always the internet exchange guys. They always come with questions. Please, Dylan.
Internet exchange and others. So, Neil, why not West Africa?
Why not yet?
Exactly. Why not yet? Dylan, it's really simple. We have a look at places that we can do good. We have already Djibouti here. It's an area or a region that we know very well. Most of the have a lot of experience here, and the opportunities have come here. So, you know, the team that's gone out to look for licensing, to look for opportunities, to find out where the business will work best. We've focused on this area, but also we're looking to create an interconnected mesh of data centers. So if you're in, as an example, Djibouti, like you are, and you want to connect to someone here in Dar es Salaam, it's as simple as ordering point to point, and you guys can pair anywhere on the Wingu ecosystem. So thanks for asking the question.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
No? Then Dylan as well. Thank you very much for your question. Okay, guys. Talking about the data centers and the data center landscape. Dylan, if I may stay with you because you have the microphone in your hand anyway. And overlooking actually the complete continent, and not being in the data center, let's say, as you are. So, what can you tell us? Can you give us a little bit a glimpse of let's say the data center landscape in Africa?
Sure. So, my name is Dylan, and I work for a company that has a grassroots approach to Africa. So, what I can say is that we use neutral locations to position our equipments. And looking at how Africa has changed since we created our entity in 2013, we can see that there's a shift in the paradigm of how can we go to Africa and peer or connect with other actors in the ecosystem. And what I can say is that there's a shift happening in East Africa, in West Africa. Neil was mentioning regulations, was mentioning backhauls, was mentioning how to actually bring people together. And Africa is actually jumping. The leapfrog concept is applying as well for the ICT. We don't see that in West Africa, and probably it's going to happen differently, since there's a statal, let's say, a state monopolistic approach where we're going into more private oligopolies in East Africa. So that hasn't really happened where there are more private people going to West Africa investing, simply put because the mobile operators, all the owners of cables are still keeping a close tab on how to allow the ecosystem locally to grow. So yeah, so for me, East Africa is a place that is very competitive. I've got many choice. I've got Raxio on my left, and I've got Wingu on my right. And to be honest, this is something that I can only dream for in West Africa, and I'll just look forward to how it's going to happen for the next years.
Okay, thank you so much. Mainza, maybe your overview of the African data center market. What are we talking about? What do you see? Maybe some trends.
Sure. Yeah, I think, sort of to give you guys an overview, Africa has 15% of the global population, 4% of GDP, but only 1% of data center capacity in the world. So there's, you can see the disparity from that sort of altitude. And then when you even drill down to Africa itself, 60% of existing data center capacity on the continent sits in South Africa alone. After South Africa, what we like to call tier 1 markets, your Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, they take up 30% of that data center capacity on the continent. So 90% of data center capacity that exists today in Africa sits in 6 countries. There's 48 other countries that share 10%. So you can imagine how large that opportunity is. And at Raxio, we focus on that 10%. We're in markets like Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, DRC, Cote d'Ivoire, sort of that tier 2, that next level down, where the reality in those markets is that there's nothing. And so the opportunity is incredibly large, however, which way you cut it.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, just to build on what my colleagues say, I stand here just from also a data center point of view, as we operate data centers across the world, nothing in Africa yet. As China Mobile, we have 5 data centers in Frankfurt, Singapore, Hong Kong, San Jose in the US, and Singapore. But from an African perspective, the market really has not yet, we've not seen the market grow to the scale that we have out there. I'll give an example of some of the trends we've seen in Africa. For example, there was a report the other day that came out that said we need about 1,000 megawatts of power to cover the entire of Africa in terms of data center space. That equivalently works out to about 700 data centers in Africa, just to meet the demand, just to meet the need that will be there. Neil spoke about the population growth that is happening, especially being a youthful. The average age in Africa is about 20 years old. So you can imagine that in the next 5 to 10 years, by 2050, when our population doubles, then the demand for internet services, the demand for digital services will be extremely high. And these 700 data centers will need to be existing. That infrastructure will need to be existing to meet that demand. So I believe from where I sit, there's a huge opportunity for data center in Africa, and especially in this region, East Africa, that is being underserved, and I'm happy to contribute.
Thank you so much. And Hunet, maybe last but not least, what do you have to add to whatever growth scenario we see? What's the landscape? Maybe you have 1 or 2 other things up your sleeve.
Yeah, I think there is a very high demand of data centers right now. I mean, with the with the COVID pandemic that has happened, it has definitely made people aware and the importance of data centers, because people have been working from home, and there was a lot of bandwidth that has been used from home, and people have realized now that there should be enough bandwidth to be used from home, and therefore people were able to automate some of the things like artificial intelligence and robotic things were happening. Not only that, as you can see from current technologies that are happening right now, like 5G that's coming up, obviously with the current data centers that we have in Africa, I don't think we'll be able to sustain all the bandwidth that will be coming in. So data centers will definitely be in high demand. We have other applications like IoT that's coming up. We also have like augmented reality, virtual reality. All this needs somewhere the data to be stored. So definitely there's something that we need to work. We see that we are coming over there. Wingu Tanzania, we are here. Wingu.Africa, we see our competitors are coming as well. So we welcome all the challenge that's coming up with the data centers.
Okay, thank you. So having set the pace of how things are looking, please speak up.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Hopewell from Zimbabwe.
Good having you.
Thank you. Resident in Dar es Salaam. My question to you is, what are the challenges? I know you're speaking about the statistics about Africa, but my question is, what are the challenges you're facing to not be able to actually the actual speed at which you require the data centers to be in Africa? Because you showed us that the internet connections are there now. So that's my first question. And number two, with the current infrastructure that you currently have, how ready are you with the incoming technology? Are you in a place to accommodate the 5G, the new networks that are coming in, the AI? How updated is your current system that you have? Like you mentioned, you've been pushing for more than 10 years now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions, actually, because there are actually more than 3 questions in there, which I actually all have listed here. So we're going to come to that, but I want to thank you. So again, thank you very much for your questions, but I'm going to take you all on this journey and we're going to answer all your questions. So please bear with us. And actually, Kevin, let's go one step back. And I know that Huned already mentioned it, because we now look at statistics, how it will grow and whatever. But we already know from the past, in whatever country, in whatever continent, that those are already, outdated numbers, because we know that it's going to explode, and we need to be ready. So we'll come to that, how to get there, and talking about the challenges, but also about the opportunities. So Kevin, maybe you can share with us, where does the data and bandwidth hungry demand come from? What kind of trends? What are the reasons, and what are the trends you're seeing for that demand?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this is not a problem we used to have 10, 15 years back. So maybe just to step back, what has happened in the last few years? We've seen, as Neil mentioned, some policies changing, especially in terms of where you house your data. So you find that banks, financial institutions have this law, GDPR laws, that require them to actually house data within, have disaster recovery and primary sites within the ecosystem. So that's one of the things that's driving growth. We also see more demand for content services, CDN services, and that is bringing cloud service providers in the markets in Africa. For a long time, for example, the market was not big enough for that. But as again, the factors have changed in the last few years. COVID has accelerated some of this. So many of us take calls on Zoom platforms, on Teams platforms and all that. So the demand for digital services, digital consumption has just skyrocketed the need to have this infrastructure ready. So beyond that, we are also seeing a lot of development in the technology and telecom space. We're seeing a lot of players launching 3G, 4G, and now 5G. Recently, 5G was launched here in Tanzania itself. So you're seeing that consumers have also a chance to actually use more bandwidth, use more content, consume more media, and still have it close by to them at optimal space. And that's why we come in as China Mobile. We try and bring that ecosystem together. We invest in subsea cables. We also invest in data centers. We invest in terrestrial networks, just to accelerate that infrastructure and make Africa ready for the next growth.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Maybe something to add? Well,
Yeah.
where do you see the hunger come from?
No, actually, I have, because one thing that we do at Afrix is we provide services for operators, which is the internet protocol transit, so IP transit. We also provide solutions for corporates. And what we see is the packets, so the data that channel the voice, the video, and the data for the everyday usage when someone is on the phone or on his laptop. Well, we see that the packets used to go from hubs such as Johannesburg, Nairobi, Lagos, London, and we see that the distance from which that packet who holds your information would go to a trajectory of a top-down, Europe to Africa, Africa to Europe, or to regional hubs to where you are in Africa, whether that being Kigoma in Tanzania, or I don't know, Kusumulu in Malawi. Well, now the packets are transiting in very short distance. And why? That's because the backhauls are being put into place and regulations are forcing companies who used to be government owned to relinquish or to allow new entrants to invest. And that allows what? That allows tenants housing complex data centers to host servers, equipments. And as a small individual as I am, and as small as Afrix, we actually see that our service have shifted from a Europe to Africa service delivery to actually being reducing our transit to give that service from the data center where AXA, where Wingu is, to the local ecosystem. And so we see that we have to adapt to this, and it's forcing us actually to be closer to our customers. And so from every actors in the ecosystem, the duplication of data centers is really helping and pushing data to mingle. And what I can say is that from also a grassroots entity, I can see the impact. Data centers are bringing top-notch, let's say, operations. Now we are looking at how can we feed the energy to those data centers. So now we need to go to the cutting-edge technology of power generation. I was in Johannesburg for the last 2 months, and every hour we've got every day we've got load shedding. And so Africa now is a place where people know that data center is a need, but how can we accommodate the need and maintain that operation? And I'm sure that Traxio and Wingu are tackling this big question. How can we're going to feed those equipments? Are we going to put diesel generators? Are we going to really look long term? So actually we're going to go OPEX. We're going to invest and then go to a model where we can allow people to just pay as you go. But it's also pushing the regulation again, because that means that we need to force Africa to invest long term, stop the power generation based on diesel, go solar panel. So invest for long term. And all this is actually bringing a mindset where it's going to force companies to relinquish backhauls to a price that is affordable. It's going to push companies to have an operational architecture that is more fluid, because the competition is going to be stiffer. So the architecture, the engineering, the operation of each entity is going to be more, let's say, fluid and fast, because data centers are going to create just capacity that will allow new entrants to come. Caches, servers from CDNs are going to come in, and that means that it's going to bring a whole new layer in terms of the architecture of Africa.
Okay, thank you. Now, Neil, before I let you and mine as well to actually to comment on your statement, from you, Neil. First one, you want to have anything to add on what you see on the trend of the on the demand which is out there, and then maybe secondly comment on what Dylan mentioned. So listen, you know what, maybe we can move, it will be a lot of power, step away, you know, be greener, what have you, but maybe you can explain what being, you know, building your new tier 3 data center, what are you doing about it, what are you thinking of, what and what is possible, because ladies and gentlemen, it is fine and nice to have the most greenest and most beautiful data centers in the world, but it is not easy. It is really not easy, and but we do want to. I mean, we do expect that everything works, huh? Right? But at the back of it, there are some data centers who are delivering and making sure that the service are happening together with iAccess, together with, you know, the bandwidth guys and the submarine cable guys and 3% the satellite guys on the connectivity. But it has to come from somewhere, and it's so long story short, short story long.
Let me answer what I think is driving the growth. I think, like we've said, that the kind of data that we're using has changed. A lot more video, a lot more cloud. There's a lot more sort of online meetings and calls and apps and things that we're using. But I think in our region, the other thing that might be driving growth is access to a smartphone at an affordable price. And I think this is something that there's a lot of work that has been done. And there's a lot of people that can afford a smartphone. They can have these services, and it does make a massive difference to people. But I think more can be done. Always more can be done. So I think that is another thing that can really drive. It has driven growth, but it will continue to drive growth as we progress on that. To answer the green question, I don't foresee in our near future a DC without some sort of diesel power generation.
Another new topic which will come, guys. Trust me, because we think we will, but so sorry for the
Shall I drop that bomb again?
The D word, you mean?
Yeah.
No, don't.
I haven't seen any plans of ours, certainly, to omit diesel generators as yet. Green technology is certainly advancing very quickly. There's a massive push towards it, and obviously we embrace that. Having said that, in Africa, we're fairly lucky in that a lot of our power is generated with water. So it is green energy. And so, you know, yes, obviously there is this push, and I do agree with it, but a lot of the power that we are using is already sort of green, let's say.
And by the end of the day, to tell you the truth, guys, we will always need the generators as a backup. Otherwise, where do we get our tier 1, 2, 3, or maybe 4 from? Because you as a customer, and as especially the cloud guys, they're not going into the data center if there is no power backup. And we all know that the batteries will last only maybe a couple of hours max. And then we need to switch as a backup. So, and we need to keep our services up and running. So it's a give and take, right? Neil, what do you say?
Absolutely. We'll do our best, but we're not promising.
And of course we need to make this world a better place, which we all will, but not everything goes overnight if we want to keep our applications running as we have them today. So that's having said that, and maybe Hunayt, you can bump in. We saw the presentation of Neil, of course, talking about, you know, all the subsea cables which are there and more to come, and etc. Where do you see the and it's probably obvious, but for some people in the audience maybe not, the importance of the subsea cabling? Maybe you can also link to what the gentleman mentioned, that everything around Africa, so which are, let's say, on the seaside, are connected, but we also have some landlocked countries still, which is quite difficult. And maybe you can tip on this one. But
Correct,
where's
yeah.
the correlation, and why do we need each other so badly?
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. So basically, I mean, what I'd say, like subsea cables and data centers are something that really needs to work together. And so far, as you can see, that most of the subsea cables, I mean, even the data centers, like for us, Wingu, we've been very lucky in Djibouti, having 11 subsea cables that are coming into our data center. And that has enabled us, that has given us some sort of reputation in a way that we're able to hold and manage the subsea cables in our data centers. So for example, like big companies such as Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all investing in subsea cables right now. For example, just recently we saw that Wingu.Africa that's coming in our side in Tanzania. It's already in Mombasa and coming into Tanzania. It's basically most of the shares is from Meta, which is Facebook. So that means subsea cables really need to work with data centers, and for a data center to be more successful, we really need subsea cables to be in the data center. That is why you see that most of the data centers currently, they're speaking to different sea cable stations, and they want to put some cable station, landing station at the seashore, so that they'll be able to connect that